Good day, everyone. Welcome again to my channel. We are all familiar with the account of David and Goliath. It's about vision, where David saw an opportunity, a divine appointment, a moment that would impact his destiny. The account isn't just about an external enemy, it's about the internal giants we all face, the opposition that tries to challenge us, the voices that whisper, you can't, or of discouragement that tries to steal our destiny. David's story challenges us to ask ourselves, when we face our own giants, what do we see? Do we see walls that block our way or doors that God is opening for us? The battle with Goliath invites us to shift our perspective, to step in our God ordained identity, not relying on our own strength, but on God's. It reminds us that the real victory comes when we choose to trust God's power more than our fear. When we feel like the giant is too big, remember, giants come not to block your path, but to reveal it. And so God used Goliath to expose what was already inside him. What do I mean by this? God can use what was meant to stop you to reveal and release what's already inside you. Goliath came to block David's path, but God used him to expose the warrior, the leader, and the anointing that had already been planted in him. David also realized that there was great reward on the other side of conquering Goliath. Sometimes your elevation, breakthrough, or open doors is waiting on the other side of the very thing you are afraid to face. The greater the giant, the greater the grace, the greater the glory God is about to reveal through your life. Now, David was anointed as king in private by Samuel before facing Goliath. He was definitely chosen by God, but not yet revealed to the nation. Likewise, sometimes you are being prepared quietly, growing, learning, building, but no one fully sees what God is doing in you yet. Goliath's emergence became the public stage for David's calling to be recognized. It wasn't just a battle between the Israelites and the Philistines. It was God's setup to usher David into his next dimension. It was a birthing room for destiny. So don't run or shrink back from the giants. Face them. What's standing in front of you might not be your enemy, it might be your entrance. The very thing that feels like opposition could actually be the stage God is using to reveal the version of you that's been hidden in preparation. Now, although David was called a mighty man of valor and a man of war in the previous chapter, the greatness of his destiny and true leadership were not yet recognized until that defining moment. Initially, they saw a mere shepherd boy, an errand boy, errand runner. But after Goliath, they saw a leader, a potential deliverer, a man marked by God. Likewise, before breakthrough, people may underestimate you or only see your current struggles. But when you step up and confront your giants, you begin to become recognized for who you truly are, equipped, empowered, and marked for purpose. I remember several years ago, I before persons associated me with the prophetic, there was a workshop at my church. And I happened to be on the committee that was putting together this workshop, and we had a special guest, a special team that came to speak. And at the end of the workshop, the committee asked me to do the vote of thanks, and that would have occurred the following night. I was quite nervous because back then I was extremely reserved, extremely shy, full of so many insecurities, afraid of public speaking and just speaking. Even if it was in a small group of 5 persons, 3 persons, I would barely say anything unless if you knew me quite well. But I said yes. I said yes that I would do the vote of thanks because in that moment I felt that it wasn't a simple vote of thanks, but somehow it was tied to my destiny. So while I was at home preparing, my heart was pounding. I was thinking about how many persons would have been coming because that was the final night where I knew that a lot of persons would be there. But in the midst of it, as I said, I sensed purpose. I sensed destiny. I didn't know what it was, but I knew that when I took that mic, it was as if something was written in heaven about me and that moment that would have released me, that would have catapulted me, that would have opened a door spiritually. And so I was moving forward, knowing that it wasn't a regular moment, but it was a God ordained moment for me. On the evening of the event, when I was at my church, someone came and she wanted to do the vote of thanks instead. And she actually held on to the gift because she really felt a passion. She was touched by what had occurred at the workshop because she could relate to the events based on past experiences. I, on the other hand, was more empathetic in terms of what was presented because I had not gone through the experiences they had outlined in the workshop. So she felt that I was not the best person, and I could understand. But as I was determined to hold on to the gift, and she kind of pulled on the gift, wanting to take it, but I held on firm until eventually she gave up and decided to allow me to go ahead. So there was a little struggle with the gift, not a fight, but a struggle as she wanted to take it from me. I did the vote of thanks, and during that moment, as I took the mic, what would have happened over the years is that I would have visualized me being on the mic, at the mic, doing presentations, ministering to persons. No one knew that all of this was within me in terms of me visualizing. And so when I took the mic, it's as if something intercepted with what I had visualized all those years in the spiritual realm and reality. So I was conscious of everyone around, but I was also conscious of the anointing that I was feeling. And as I gave the vote of thanks, there came a prophetic flow. It wasn't me prophesying of thus saith the Lord, but there was a prophetic flow with declarations and an authority in my voice that I realized even as I spoke, those around me, I saw some of them standing and looking amazed because the person who they had known over the years was different from the person they saw at the mic. The voice they would have heard over the years was different from the voice that they had heard over the mic as they saw me looking quite confident, but of course shaking on the inside. And at the end of the presentation, persons came to me and were like, wow, um, you know, it's as if they were trying to understand what just happened. And the young lady who before didn't want me to do the presentation, she came to me and said, Tammy, I apologize. You were the person who should have done the presentation. And I bless her for that because, as I said, I understood where she was coming from. But I knew I had to face that Goliath because something was going to shift in the heavenlies for me. A few days later, I told my pastor about me presenting and the declarations and how it coincided with what I visualized at varying times of my life. And at the end of speaking with him, he invited me to join his mentorship. It wasn't a prophetic mentorship, but a general mentorship. And then possibly about a year or so later, after joining his mentorship, he asked one of my church sisters and me to start conducting a prophetic series at my church. So I really don't know if I would have been asked to have conducted that prophetic series if I had not even stepped out and faced my Goliath in terms of the mic, which would have then catapulted me in being part of his mentorship series, where he would have heard more of my heart and what was happening in my life. So I just gave that example to show that sometimes we shrink back from key moments, not realizing that they are kairos moments. And when we step out as God intends us to, then it shifts something in the atmosphere. And it's not just a validation of what God has been doing in your life and preparing in the background for you, but then others around you also begin to validate and see the potential of what's on your life. So, what are some examples of what Goliath or giants can look like in our lives? One, there can be fear that you have carried for years, the inner voice that says you are not enough, you can't do this, you're going to make a mistake. Two, it can be comparison that makes you shrink back just when God calls you to rise. Three, it can be a negative label someone gave you that you secretly started believing. Four, it can be a toxic or hostile work environment with a harassing, undermining, or blocking supervisor, colleague, or boss. Five, it can be unseen barriers in your community or cycles of conflict you thought you had left behind. Six, it may be cultural or societal expectations that try to confine your identity, dreams, or expression of purpose. And by culture, I'm not just talking about nationally, it can be in the community, it can be in the family, it can be in your church, etc. Seven, it can be facing people or situations that dismiss or challenge your faith and values, making it hard to stand strong, but calling you to trust God and step forward anyway. Eight, you can be taking on a major project or new responsibility where others may doubt your abilities or even accuse you of showing off, just like David's brothers questioned him and called him basically an idol, a mischief maker. Yet you are called to step forward in faith and purpose. Note, Goliath only has power when you lose sight of who you really are. When you forget your identity in God, your assignment, and the God who fights for you, you begin to magnify the problem instead of the promise. But note this, it doesn't mean you won't feel fear. Even David felt the weight of what was before him in terms of he knew it would be great. Based on his history, it doesn't look as if he felt fear because God had prepared him enough for that moment. So having faith doesn't mean that we will not feel fear or nerves. It means you move forward anyway. You step forward, trembling if you must, trusting God to meet you in motion. And here's the beauty of it. As you keep stepping out, as you keep showing up in obedience, something begins to shift. One day you look back and realize that the fear that once paralyzed you lost its grip. His voice has grown quieter. His weight has grown lighter until eventually it's gone. Because boldness isn't born in comfort. It's forged in the fire of every step you took, despite the trembling, despite the nerves. And that's part of how God prepares us. It's part of what it means to remain obedient in the face of uncertainty. It's part of how you confront the sting of rejection and refuse to let it become a stumbling block. We talk about this in the video, the three processes before the prophetic promise. And right here in the face of Goliath, you are living it. You're not just waiting on the promise, you're being shaped by it. So here's what I leave with you. Giants don't show up when you're going nowhere. They appear when you're getting close, close to breakthrough, close to promotion, close to walking in what you were anointed for. And while Goliath may look like a threat, he's actually standing guard at the gate of your next dimension. What you defeat in the season could also unlock someone else's freedom in the next. So don't shrink back. Don't disqualify yourself because of how you feel. Step forward, flawed, maybe uncertain, but a man or woman of faith. You are never meant to fight in your own strength. You come in the name of the Lord of hosts, like David. And because of that, you will overcome. You will advance. You will walk boldly in your prophetic destiny because the fight isn't just about you, it's about the assignment on your life, the people connected to your obedience, and the glory God will get when your story becomes a testimony. So again, face the giant, take the shot, swing the stone, watch what falls, and when the dust clears, walk forward like the warrior you truly are. Again, thank you for joining me today. If this message spoke to your heart, please like, share, subscribe so that anytime a video is released, you are notified, you are told of it right away so that we can walk this prophetic journey together. Until next time, God bless you richly. Shalom.